Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
Great way to always set the mood for a new discussion, brother.
Basically, as I probably said before, like that one guy said that, um, Prabhupada or whatever his name was, the Hare Krishna guy, he said that no, it was Ramdas that said this actually. He said
That's what I was thinking.
he
Yeah.
said it'll change the way you do it depending on how you're feeling at the time. I did it a little different that time, I feel like.
Yeah. You know what, man? I think these chants, or anything else for that matter, they can, like, listening to a certain type of music or anything really depends on what you're getting pulled to.
Yeah.
You know?
Like the importance of having a practice, or like the purpose that like chants could possibly serve is, you know, bringing yourself from the mundane to the spiritual, in a hurry,
Yeah.
chance can be a great way to do that.
I love the story, and I felt this. I didn't realize it. So he told me many months ago when he started to discover these chants, he said, "Brother,
You got
I
high.
was not on cannabis,
Yes.
kratom, or kava,
And I
but
got high as a kite.
he said I absolutely got so high that I had to stop." And I'm just going to be
Literally.
honest. I knew he was obviously telling the truth, but I said that's
Hard to
weird.
believe.
That's kind of hard to believe. I'll buy it. I know this gentleman has been in some different states of consciousness, to say the least. Whew. Well,
Yeah.
and it was many months later. I didn't really get this chance situation until really recently. And I fucking don't remember what I said. I think I was just sitting there going, I done that
Which in
for
Hinduism is the original syllable. Think about that. So when the universe started, it was think about that. It came into being, the universe, dude.
You fucking talking deep shit, man.
That's what you hear when you're deep in psychedelics, dude. You hear that.
I listened to some examples of audio today.
Okay, and the om, that sound,
Mm-hmm.
is associated with Brahman.
Yeah.
Brahman is the concept of. So Brahman is basically what I am,
Mm-hmm.
what you are, what these people are,
Yeah.
what all animals, all plants, everything is. Deep down, it's like an atom. What is an atom in physical reality? An atom is
something teensy weeny, isn't it?
Yes, but more precisely, you can't break down matter any more than an atom. Well, they did split the atom,
Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying. It is the smallest unit of matter.
Yeah.
Well, what is the smallest unit of us? Well, according to certain mystical systems, they call it Brahman, and Brahman is the whole thing. It's the deepest thing. It's what we are on our deepest level. It's the soul, and all souls are united, and that's a way you could think of it.
Real quick, could you hand me the milk really quick, brother, for a quick swig?
Sure, brother.
Then I'll hand it right back to you.
That's
yes, sir.
Like good milk, brother.
Mm-hmm. We want to come forth and talk about a great many of things today. And I want to start this off, before we get into anything any more deeply than some chants. We want to humbly come forth, record ourselves talking about the things we usually do, and once a week we may throw a camera on. Whoever watches this, we genuinely love you, as creepy as that may sound to some of you. And there is a need for hatred as well, and we want to explain that. We believe anybody who you come in contact with. I look, we are both on kava at the moment, and it fills you with so much love. I'm gonna try not to get cheesy and start like crying on you people here. That the few dogs that somebody accidentally clicks on something before they leave at work, and their dogs are watching this. Anyway, that sounds more like it. Um, there is a need for hatred, and at the moment, we are both experiencing great hatred on the Temple of Illusion, which is this so-called government. I don't know the fucking system, but they are trying.
Government is, oh, it's the government's
Yeah,
fault.
yeah, that's classic.
But what we're really saying is
the people who's trying to ban kratom. Fuck it, that's it.
Those people in anybody that's in leadership positions that's failing miserably at being the arm of the people.
There was a gentleman back in the 90s who was involved in the Anton LaVey's church. Matter of fact, LaVey handed him his position. He ended up marrying his daughter and all that good stuff. And they interviewed this great gentleman, which
about the new minister, the guy?
Not that guy, but the guy who married his daughter.
No, I know what you're talking about.
He wasn't there very long. They ended up moving to India and became practicers. Is that the word? Practitioners of Buddhism.
Yeah, I didn't know that they did kind of steer away from the church.
Yes, they obviously don't have anything against it.
They think that Satanism is a great foundation.
Like it's a start.
Oh, it's amazing.
You can use that.
It's the dynamite that blows out this collective illusion of Christianity.
I've mentioned to people in the past, and he has to. He may say something a little bit different than what I say, possibly. A lot of things we really absolutely see absolutely eye to eye. We're very close brothers, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, I can't stress enough, we both can't, steering away from whatever culture is, from whatever these politicians are saying, what is right or wrong, because I'm here and he is here to tell you. Because, we just want to vent just a second. Yeah. This is our chance to,
maybe you guys will relate to our
maybe
frustrations.
You guys,
I'm sure you probably do.
We hope that you will see this. But with Louisiana, he sent me a text and told me that there's.
I've been sending emails like a motherfucker.
Yeah,
that damn governor, man, that fucking piece of shit.
I loved what you texted me the other day. I was really depressed. I was actually on a kratom ceremony when he sent this to me, and I was up in the woods by my favorite tree. And I said, I'm going to have a little ceremony and just kind of desecrate and purify this news that I've just gotten. And if you really want to split hairs, what we was going to say is this sacred holy plant such as kratom, and I promise you, it is a sacred holy plant. I say that a lot, and a lot of people might say, this guy needs to be in a straitjacket. Well, you know what? Every motherfucker out there needs to be in a straitjacket if you want to split hairs.
Okay, when I did send that email, I didn't touch on the religious aspect of it, because
you touched on the harm reduction part.
I touched on the actual physical aspect of it. But think about this, Cameron. People go ahead.
I don't even get to talk. I don't really go to that direction, but that's an amazing part to bring up.
Yes,
if you want to talk, I gotta run to the bathroom very quickly.
Man. Basically what I sent in my email was, like we said, Louisiana they passed a bill to ban Mitragyna speciosa, which I'm very hurt about. I find it a terrible abuse of human rights, and it's very ironic. I heard someone post that that same day that that kratom was that ban was passed, it was brew day in Louisiana. It was like an beer day for them. Excuse me. We know, and it's so insane. Like, basically what I said in my email was, it is plain, that how many people, and where we live, it has been hit particularly hard.
Yes.
How many people are addicted to? How many people have hooks in their brains that trace back to pharmaceutical companies? Lots of them. And these are not no innocuous substances. These are drugs that you can overdose on very easily. You can die very easily. So the idea, about kratom as an amazing harm reduction tool is if someone is addicted to, because this is a story that happens all the time. Somebody gets hurt, they get prescribed opiates by their doctor, and they become addicted. And then they're chasing that high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the doctors still prescribe it to them. They're making their money. And then eventually the pills are not working anymore because their damn tolerance is so high. Think about that. They're taking stuff that they give you like after surgery, and you're addicted to that. Yeah. And it's a terrible addiction. And so we have been looking for a pain reliever that does not cause respiratory depression for so long. Kratom, doesn't cause respiratory depression, which is what kills people. So if someone is addicted to opiates, they can use kratom and stave off their withdrawals until they're not addicted to it anymore. And it's the data is there. What I begged in this email was just listen to the people. Listen to the millions of people that are sending you fucking emails saying how this is literally improved their lives. They were on a one-way track to death if it wasn't for kratom. And then that's one aspect of it. But then there's the aspect of it, that me and you kind of focus on, which is the magical religious aspect. I really do think that these plants are like pheromones. Like, I've talked to you about this before. Plants have always been running the show. It's not us.
We came way later.
Plants, animals is something that plants invented to move seeds around. And we can do great things as human beings, but we got to get a hold of ourselves, man. And this abuse of human rights, like we see in Louisiana, is so disgusting. And I have nothing but negative things to feel about the way that they have governed their state. Shame on you, Louisiana representatives. Shame on you for preventing people access to this safe plant.
Yes, sir.
But there's people that use cannabis.
Yes, sir.
And they don't use it ritualistically.
Absolutely.
So some people, we know cannabis has been used ritualistically for a long time. But yet we see a lot of people, rappers, smoking blunts, with their Percocets and stuff like. So even cannabis, which is something that's pretty widely seen as a pretty psychedelic substance, even it isn't used ceremoniously by a lot of people. But the ceremonial benefit of these plants is really,
I think what
worth
it is,
noting.
I believe the reason we jump to this ceremonious aspect of kratom and kava so much is because once you dip your little feet and hands into the realms of these ceremonies and being used in these ways, and then the information that will be brought forth with these plants,
these are information-bearing plants.
It's so deeply inspiring that you can't not think of it in that way. But we would be completely happy to see anybody that's possibly having a horrible drug addiction to something pharmaceutical turn to kratom for that reason. And we wouldn't be upset if you didn't want to use it for mystical advice. We'd be so happy with that.
Bottom line is,
this plant's so beautiful.
We already are. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think these are beautiful.
We talk about this a lot.
I have nothing but great things to say about it. Now, that's not to say, look, this is what's so crazy. You might have one person that's having, adverse effects. then stop taking it. If you're having
Yeah.
adverse effects, stop taking
You know,
it. It might not be for you.
are you
But there's
going
millions
to-
of us. This is enhancing our life. This is making us healthier. This
Okay.
is making us not overeat.
Yeah, we're going to rant for a minute, actually. This needs to be said. It don't matter if nobody looks at this. At least we said it. To this camera. Once again, fuck these mindless sheep politics who has been really putting down this plant. And it's so funny that...
Oh yeah, the Louisiana people, they said that it was ridiculous. Oh, you ready to get mad?
Sure, might as well. I'm already mad.
Yeah, they said one of the representatives said that it is, quote, ridiculous to say that kratom is safer than
So
alcohol.
some of the kratom people must be talking about that, right?
Mhm.
Unless they, for some reason, talked about your post. I'm sure there has to be other people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the kratom subreddit a lot, and yeah, that was one of the things that they said.
All right, look. What about if you want to talk about a
Just literally
horrible-
compare the LD50.
Okay.
I have a screenshot of the LD50. You would have to eat like a whole kratom tree.
Look, I can
to
take
die.
a large dose of kratom right now and fucking have the best drive of my whole life. Everything clear, everything in
Focus.
4K,
Yeah.
and focus. I'm not going to make any mistakes.
No.
Unless
You'll
somebody
be-
else does.
You'll be less likely to make mistakes.
Why don't we talk about all of the deaths that happen while drinking and driving?
What about all the? Do you know? I forget the exact percentage,
Fuck
but
that.
it's something like maybe 50% of murders.
Yeah.
Are the people are on alcohol? You know, you don't see people taking kratom or cannabis or kava and beating their children.
It doesn't hurt.
That's not the state of consciousness that it brings you into. The
If
state of consciousness of love.
if you ladies and gentlemen are cannabis smokers, kratom users, or you believe in wanting to be free, then
You are of us.
you are exactly
And
the
we
same
are
as
of
us,
you.
and we are of you. At the end of the day, the reason we rant and rave so much about these sacred holy plants, it's exactly what they are. It's almost like this mom always asking her son or daughter to reassure her, you're not going to walk across the road whenever traffic's coming, because it's so it's so obvious that you keep saying it. We're constantly talking about this because it's the 100% truth. The government, which we can narrow that down to a lot of things, you know, these politicians who are passing these laws, these fat, greedy pieces
Beer
of shit.
guzzling, fast food eating pigs.
We would love to come forth with the truth of why they are going after this plant, and there's a great many of reasons why this is. Number one, they, big shock, do not want you to become enlightened. They don't want to see their perfectly installed system fail. They don't want to see that everything that you may think is important is actually false.
Yeah.
Not only false, but it's maximum, the furthest false you can actually go to. They want you to have any sort of problems, go to these pharmaceutical companies, give like more money in their pockets.
Cameron,
You know,
any doctor out there is going to
absolutely
they're more liable.
bash kratom.
They are more liable to prescribe you benzodiazepines,
Oh, yeah.
Xanax,
Yeah.
than to give you kratom.
Guys-
No, that's another aspect of kratom is, you know, there's the people that are using it. There's I'm on the kratom subreddit a lot, so I see a lot of people that use it. Okay, so with kratom, I see a lot of former alcoholics that are using this to relax instead of alcohol because
Yes.
alcohol was killing them, killing their liver. Terrible for their cardiovascular health, terrible for their mind, terrible hangovers and rebound. Kratom doesn't have that. Kratom does not have a hangover because it is not toxic.
Exactly.
What was I going to say? What was I?
I brought up about the reasons these politicians don't want us to access
The
kratom.
reasons people use it. Yeah. So the alcoholics, former hard opiate pharmaceutical addicts, and also I see a lot of this people that were on benzos.
Yeah.
So you have and SSRIs. So kratom, you know, it's interesting. I feel like these plants, in order to kind of get into us and influence us, they appeal to us on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Same thing with like the mushroom or cannabis.
Absolutely.
They help many different types of people. So you might kratom has this kind of mood
Oh
stabilizing
yeah,
effect,
fuck yes.
and it soothes your anxiety. It doesn't make your anxiety disappear, but it makes it easier to manage.
Absolutely.
So and we all know, if you know anything about GABA drugs like Xanax, they're incredibly dangerous because it's not easy to overdose on them, but the danger is what they do to your brain. And when you get addicted to them, it's very bad. If you're addicted to benzos and you quit cold turkey, you will most likely die or have some serious brain damage. Dude, I see the benzodiazepine subreddit pops up on my feed a lot, and Cameron, I've seen some disturbing posts. Cameron, this guy was like, "Please help me." Ringo, this was the post. He said, "Please help me," and it said, I'm seeing snowflakes, like those, like their eyes, their vision was like white. They had white dots everywhere, and he said, like I forget, like, but he was a long-term benzo user. He's like, when will I feel normal again? That's what he was asking, and it was like, oh my god, you probably
Went too far.
probably went too far.
You know what? He's touching on some really amazing things here. The truth is, in this life, with all the media and the crazy things we have going on, a lot of true evil. If you want to really point out what a Satanist really is, it is these politicians, it's these wars that's going on, it's people, as the old Black Sabbath song says, these politicians are treating life as though it's boards and chess. We live in a place to where we need, as cheesy and hippie as this sounds, we need love and a higher state of consciousness more than ever. What we preach.
We can afford to reduce our consciousness.
No, what is this quote that we love so much? Harness the lightning for hire was a phrase that was often said by Aleister Crowley.
How do you reach that? How do you reach that mind, that superior
I would
mind?
Be so happy to
your normal consciousness.
Looking within oneself.
The hidden interior realm.
Oh yeah,
it's there.
It's right. It's the quickest, less. You don't have to prepare as much when accessing this one. Sitting in a room and just reflecting on, why do I believe these things? Yes. Whether it's something passed down to me. Okay, so I have to hide this cannabis.
Yeah.
Why do I have to hide this cannabis? What's wrong? The truth.
This is a safe plant that makes me happy. Why is my life going to be? My livelihood is going to be threatened. There's mothers and fathers that are using this to help them get through their daily lives.
You know what? Going back to what you said, he was talking about. It seems as though plants such as kratom or kava, even cannabis, they seem to point to each other, but not only that, to the even much higher things that are up on the top of the scale, like such as psilocybin or DMT. I've often found many times to where on a kratom ceremony, I will be wanting to research the visuals and the effects of, say, DMT, ayahuasca. The truth is, we truly mean from the bottom of our hearts for you to be free. We want all of us to be free and to break free from the chains that culture and our capitalistic government has placed into us at birth. We also wants us to realize the things that's getting preached to us every day is absolute drivel. Low consciousness can't be preached enough. I feel that
we don't have room for it anymore.
If you're talking in a room by yourself and your will is true and your will is love, and you're following your actual true will, saying and these things out loud literally gets sent through the cosmos.
That's what a spell is. Think about that.
And a lot of people that has done it. Jim Carrey has done it.
What a great, brilliant man.
Amazing guy, by the way. And we want to talk about, once again, yes, as far as these politicians not only taking away our freedom to expand,
constrict our consciousness.
to make it in such a holy place. They don't want us to be that way. You think they would ever give the people fighting these wars a dose of kratom and then they go, "I love you, brother,"
Yeah.
not in a drunk way,
Right.
but in a higher leveled
Exactly.
consciousness way,
in the most lucid way.
You can't want to literally, you have that person, I want to beat the crap out of that guy for running me off the road. You don't like, you won't go to those states of mind when you're on that.
We talked a little bit about.
I gotta go pee again. That water is running through me, brother.
You're all good. I want to touch on this. You brought up hate earlier, and is hate, a necessary thing? Some of the things that I feel that I have the most hate for is anything that restricts people's happiness and restricts people's ability to live their lives in the way they see fit. Maharaji, Ram Dass's guru, the famous holy man, he told Ram Dass, love everyone, but tell the truth. Love everyone, but tell the truth. But at the same time, we need to feel, these negative emotions that we feel towards, towards our state and towards anybody that is getting in the way of people expanding their consciousness.
Absolutely, brother. You know what, man? I was thinking of when you went to the bathroom. I had something I was going to say and I forgot, but I just remembered when I went back to the bathroom. First of all, and if you don't believe us on this, that's completely okay. We'll throw it out anyway. We truly care for whatever sort of problems that people are dealing with. We all have our own demons we must battle, and some of these things seem to surface whenever we go to bed, to go to sleep, for example. We live in a time to where the way that things are conducted there is a lot of mental health struggles.
Yeah.
And I would like to
wonder.
talk about that. First of all, there's
Yeah.
no wonder. Second of all, it's very possible that you've been told by a doctor, prescribed things, and possibly, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, that could be mistaken for actually opening up your third eye, if you will.
Yeah.
Maybe you're becoming enlightened. Look what they call Jim Carrey. Him, he has the mindset of somebody pretty much from the Golden Dawn back in the 1800s. That may be still a thing, but I'm just.
It is. But yeah, I started back then.
I was scrolling through earlier, looking at some of his 80s and 90s stand-ups, and
phenomenal.
We watched them today. We had such a great time. One of these videos were called Jim Carrey is completely insane. And that's the way the media looks at him. Look,
a free-willed person. That's insane.
It's
not culturally sanctioned.
Yeah.
His behavior is not culturally sanctioned.
Me and my brother here, we are Charlie nobodies. But if we, for some reason, was more known, we would definitely be hated people.
Yeah.
Even him sending this very, very true email to some of these people who's I don't know the whole story to it, but as he mentioned, these people who are banning kratom. If somebody looked at that, obviously people would hate that. We have to. What I'm trying to say here is we absolutely have to stand up for what's right. You know what? There was a great woman who we would love to send power her way as much as possible and hope that she has positivity and the circumstances that she's in. But, an amazing woman has recently been arrested for possession of the holy, sacred, ceremonious plant of kratom for literally having a 250-gram bag, and
She got
obviously,
out of state in
you know what?
Alabama.
That right there. We once again comes back to saying shame on
And what
the
is this,
law
man?
enforcement.
This is not a war on drugs. It's a war on consciousness.
Exactly.
I mean, look at the psychedelics that they made illegal. They literally in 19, I think it was 1970. Nixon, I think it was Nixon. He had the Sweeping Psychedelic Act. He called it the Sweeping Psychedelic Act.
That's why John Lennon hated him so much.
And they made all psychedelics illegal, and without sufficient research.
I'm just gonna say this. One of probably my favorite quote by the amazing George Harrison, aka a member of the Beatles, is talking about the good old cannabis. Mm-hmm. I got about a half pound in me boot. Yeah. He's talking about a police came and searched his place. Fuck all
cops
that.
Were
Fuck all that.
Them.
Fuck all
cops
that.
Were literally planting musicians with drugs and arresting them back then.
Police officers, they need to know what they're serving is a term that I've loved so much recently, is they are serving the temple of illusion.
Yeah.
And Maya. As ladies and gentlemen who want to grow and want to be free, we must continue to voice our opinion. We must break through these walls of illusion. The truth is there. The truth is within. The truth is with these plants that will point to possibly your whole life that you are absorbed with is a mere illusion.
I mean, if you think about it,
life can be very beautiful.
It can be.
And there's humans with the capacity of true love. There's people who they want us to be free. And look, a lot of these people who are taking these pharmaceuticals and their life's miserable, they're the people that go into a school and blow people up. I've never heard any accounts of a kava user or a kratom user going in and blowing these places up. At least I've never heard of it. I'm not saying it's never happened, but I'm telling you, it seems that the like the kratom community, for example, as if you want to look at everybody together, it seems to be a really good, put together bunch of people who just are trying to safely
enhance their lives with this.
Deal with the circumstances that we're in. It's a very strange situation.
And our world is in pretty grim situation, and we have maniacal leaders across the globe that are making decisions every day to the detriment of our planet and to the detriment of all of our lives. It blew my mind. I got stoned the other day and started thinking about oh my God, who is like at this moment making decisions. Think about we all know how full of bullshit our politicians are. These people are making decisions every day for us. Why aren't we being consulted? Why aren't the people being consulted?
Exactly. LaVey talks about it. Why are we letting these weak, powerless politicians make them feel that they do have the power? Donald Trump doesn't have any power. Look, the man hasn't even, he hasn't not done kratom, he hasn't done kava. I'm not saying you have to do this to have power, but look, he has been absorbed in his 3D physical life always. He's pushing 80 years old. Do you think he wonders when this game is over, what's going to happen after that? What does he think?
What's it all worth?
Well, okay, what's a legacy? He talks about that.
Cameron,
what is your legacy?
It's an illusion. Will mean absolutely nothing in 200 years.
It will mean absolutely shit.
It will mean absolutely shit. And this is the thing, man. This is if the Buddhists had anything right, it was this: nothing lasts. Nothing lasts. Not even your sweet little self.
Yep.
And and life seems to be this intersection of ecstasy and suffering.
The truth is, It can be a little bit, I don't know,
Discouraging.
discouraging, nerve-wracking whenever you start to actually see the light of truth. Because you realize, oh God, once you actually get old enough to realize, oh yeah, I'm not going to live forever. It's not going to be like this forever. And you start thinking about what's beyond that casket. And people like to say, well, it's just nothing. We was talking about this earlier. It's just dark. It's
Yeah.
just like you're asleep. And look, that would
That is
be
just another fairy tale that people tell
it's
themselves.
the
Just
main
as
fairy
much
tale.
as if you don't accept Christ in your
Yeah.
heart, you're going to hell for eternity.
I want to say some of my situations that's been happening, and he's got triple the amount of stuff that I've talked about because we've mentioned a lot. This good gentleman has definitely had his hands in many psychedelic realms of experience, but as just myself being a kratom user, kava, cannabis, sometimes I can only wonder about like these actual psychedelics because I feel like a very psychedelic place at most times of the day. I feel that once we start to walk into the direction, humbly trying to seek the truth to free ourselves, I feel that we feel the spiritual realms will also reach out to you halfway, sometimes more than halfway, and you will start getting synchronicities like no other. The more you acknowledge them, the weirder it gets, as we talk about
I
a lot.
wonder how many people,
we would love to know.
That may be watching this. Yeah, man.
Please comment. Let us know. We love this stuff.
Because I get synchronicities so much that it's just astonishing. Thinking of someone,
I would love to give a
numbers.
couple examples really quick. By the way, let's discuss what a synchronicity is. If anybody doesn't know this, this was a word that was coined by the great, not Alan Watts, Carl Jung, Dr. Carl Jung, if you will. If I'm not mistaken, the early 1900s.
Probably on the 40s or something like that.
And this guy, by the way, I need to tell you more about this stuff here in a little bit, actually. I actually got some stuff I want to show you later, actually, about Carl Jung. He talks about, oh God, Carl Jung. If you don't know him, look him up. He's beautiful.
Yeah.
And he's amazing.
McKenna
he's so insightful.
Was quite a big fan of him.
Carl Jung was a prophet, man, and that's such an understatement.
He was kind of a mystic. He really was.
He was really a mystic. Anyway, so a recent synchronicity was me and him was texting, and I told him that, and this just really creeped me out. I was wanting to show him a stand-up show by Jim Carrey. While I was watching a stand-up show on Jim Carrey, but Jim Carrey was rambling about stuff, and he got on the subject of karate. Hiya! And he asked the audience, is there anybody in this crowd who has ever practiced karate? And they didn't get a chance to even respond. And he texted me after a couple hours and said, fuck yeah. I got chills on me. I said, that's the cosmic eye that sits upon the tower and just giggles.
Let me give you an example of one that happens to me quite often. Okay, I listen to long ass lectures of Terrence McKenna and Ram Dass, and you know how people will put timestamps. Okay, so on the comments, at least on my phone, it'll show. You can tap on the comments and slide through it, but it'll show like one comment at a time, and it'll kind of show one, show another one, and like I will be watching a lecture. I'll be like an hour and 3 minutes into it. And I'll be like maybe holding my phone and accidentally tap that comment, and it will take me to the exact second that I was already on.
Oh, I have seen him do this a lot.
Yes.
I've seen him do this a lot.
That blows my fucking mind.
Yeah, that's complete insanity, man.
And I mean, what is the ultimate synchronicity?
Okay, that's just like proving there's more.
Oh my God, that stuff happens to me all the time. And, McKenna talked about this. He said, it's almost as if the more you kind of awaken, the more these types of messages are manifested in your life. It's very mysterious, and I can't say that I know why this is. Um, but the greatest synchronicity there is our own bodies. You know, if you were given the keys to your body, you wouldn't make it no time. You would die, but you find yourself inhabiting this meat body, and it's just running well on its own. I mean, obviously people have health problems and things like that, but a normally functioning human body is this perfect synchronicity. And I think things like that, things like our bodies, that should blow our minds.
Yeah.
That should blow our
Oh yeah, our
minds.
bodies, our brains, the way there's so many theories. For example, I was reading about what is sleep. I mean, it's something that the truth is it could be something we have evolved and haven't changed in the way that um, laying down when it gets dark and just be as still and quiet. That way we couldn't be some larger animal's prey. What if that's something that just carried over? Why do we dream? There's a
Dreams are
proposal.
so mysterious to me, man.
Some say that, partially it could be for these doors that get opened up, the magical spiritual world, if you want to call it that. Um, another part of could be why we dream is our brain is, reflecting on the day that we had. So it's going through things that are important. We remember, and we get to remember, and it's throwing out the things.
That's what Sigmund Freud called day residues that manifest in your
Oh, cool.
dreams.
I didn't know he talked about that.
I've had some very strange dreams before.
Yes.
Kava
seems to induce even stranger dreams.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing a little research on it that I read about the lucid dreaming aspect of it.
Yeah,
it's definitely true, and I think we should be.
I'm glad you brought this up because I was thinking
we should pay close attention to our dreams and to our thoughts. That should be what we rely on. We should not rely on the news or the president or any other person to make our decisions. We should rely on the authenticity of our own minds and our own experiences. And these plants, dissolve cultural assumptions, you see. And this is why they're social dynamite, is because it's, a lot of these plants are incompatible with the way that everyone is conditioned to run their lives. We gotta question everything.
Yes.
And we gotta say to ourselves, look, we are right now living in the United States. This culture is held together by nothing more but linguistically enforced hallucinations. Nothing more. So think about it. We could run this world however we damn please. It doesn't have to be. We could make a new language. We could talk other things into existence. And as long as you're subjecting yourself to, the media that's been produced out of this toxic society, your brain is going to be shaped by that. So our duty, if we want to expand our consciousness and abandon this toxic culture that we're in, we gotta be very conscious of what we're directing our minds to. We're all magicians. We all practice magic, whether you think so or not.
Yeah.
And a good magician is somebody that concentrates their intention. They don't just go by impulse. They we can think about things and make decisions based on our highest knowledge instead of following some rule book or something. Yeah, I love this quote. It might have been LeVay that said this. He said, "Nature is Satan's Bible."
Yeah, they refer that a lot. Actually, the gentleman I was talking about who married his daughter talked a lot about that. One thing I would like to talk about for a little bit is what was I going to say? As soon as I start thinking, I was going to forget. I don't remember.
It's
What
best
the
episode.
crap was I going to say? I might have to drink this coffee and then I'll remember.
Okay. But magic has been something that has interested me, for a long time, and you know, we could all, I encourage people to have a practice. I really do see yoga, whether that be meditation and taking care of your body, your diet, all of this contributes to your magical workings. You want to be calm when you're conducting a ritual, and we carry all this tension, with this so much. We carry a lot of tension with us, and yoga, this ancient way of moving the body and releasing certain tensions, like that's very important in magic as well as is meditation.
Yeah.
Really what my experience with meditation, although I haven't, I don't meditate I don't even meditate every day really. I mean, I meditate frequently, but the way I like to see it, I mean, there's many different ways you can meditate, but some of my most deepest meditation experiences has been this. I remember sitting under a tree, and I got deep into meditation, and I remember just feeling like I had just zoomed out and was looking at things. I was no longer just my ego looking out. I was like,
I've done that to an extent as well. Yeah.
Cosmic perspective, and it just, meditation can help you, not be so attached to your ego, and not only that, but to just like, I'm just going to be right here, right now. Yeah. This is the way it's always going to be.
You know what? We are probably, I mean, I couldn't imagine somebody being less judgmental than my good brother and I. You get on a lot of channels and you have people that's talking about you have to do it this way, you have to do it. Right. This is the way to enlightenment, and this is the way. The truth is there's, we actually prefer a lot of different routes and to get into a certain state of consciousness when really reaching for these truths.
Yeah.
And it's funny that let's just use Ram Dass, for example. We can read a Ram Dass book or part of it without being on any plant.
Yeah.
And then once we take, say, Kratom or Kava, oh my God,
tunes you in so much more.
We pick up these little details. Oh, I see what he means. Oh, I see. Yes. And that's just one of the reasons. Like that's
it's like a spiritual catalyst of a sort. I really do think that the three-dimensional manifestation of the goddess is the plants.
Yeah.
It's what everything draws from. We all draw our nutrients from plants.
Yes.
Directly or indirectly. Just like a child and the mother. The child draws all of the nutrients from the mother. So we could think of the organic matrix, plant matrix that we're in, as the 3D manifestation of the goddess. So these plants, are like pheromones to inspire the monkeys. Let's talk about this for a second. Yeah. Why would nature produce these compounds like psilocybin? If you've never had a good stiff dose of psilocybin, then you will just have absolutely no idea how strange and how deep this goes. It's infinite. It's unbelievable. It's what you have been taught does not exist.
Yeah.
And it's psychedelics being illegal is like having a room in your house. The government said, nope, can't go in there.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Psilocybin, DMT, these are already endogenous compounds. They're preventing us from using something that we already have.
I love the way you explain that. It's so perfect.
And yeah, why would nature produced these things. That's a really weird thing. Why does a mushroom possess a human neurotransmitter in it that carries with it this whole database of information that seems to span across the eons of time? You know, whatever that thing is, it knows you better than you know yourself, and it will talk to you. You could understand taking a drug, having weird visuals, but to take a drug and then something just puts its arm around you and says, "Buddy, we have a few things we need to talk about. Number 1, number 2, number 3." It will do that. It will talk to you like that. And that's just so astonishing.
That's deep talk, man. Deep
talk.
talk.
But let's postulate for a second that these plants are pheromones that are changing the way the monkeys think and inspire us. Well, perhaps there is some sort of plan to all of this, you know? Perhaps, McKenna talked about the eschaton, and eschatology is the study of last things. And perhaps there is an eschaton. There is a last thing that all of this is building up to, you know? And I don't think that it's going to work out as long as we're not integrated into the plan of nature, you know? We must integrate ourselves back into the natural system, you know, and do our purpose. We're never going to be happy. We're never going to feel good unless we're doing what we need to do, you know? And we need to be thinking about that. What do I need to do? And I think the biggest thing that most people can start with is deconstructing all of these preconceived notions of reality. Because I promise you that whatever your model is of reality is insufficient. This universe is stranger than you could possibly imagine. And 5 dried grams in silent darkness on an empty stomach will prove that to you.
You know, that could be a reason why these plants are also so scary. You know,
it's so dramatically different from anything that you could possibly conceive of.
And you know, I can honestly say, I mean, it's possible people, you know, well, they do use these things and can use these things in different ways. But I can honestly say, these kava ceremonies and kratom ceremonies, cannabis, oh my God, it can also really chip away at what you believe to be reality. And it can be hard to swallow sometimes. And the truth is, you know, we've talked about the state of what this world's in. It can be very scary. You know, instead of being so scared of dying, obviously, we're probably going to off and on we're going to have that fear.
Yeah.
You know, what to be scared of is these decisions that's being made that we have no part in.
That is scary.
You know, that it's those kind of decisions that make you think, oh, I'm worried about the wrong thing. And I want to say this is a very scary time. It's easy to look back at like the 80s, 90s, and you know,
just wax nostalgic about, oh man, I wish I was living back then, man.
I mean, everybody, that's the thing now. People are just
I really do think that
it's like people our age is obsessed with the 90s. I've noticed that early 2000s.
It really does seem like the overall vibe of like what we're living through right now.
Nobody likes really.
It's pretty grim.
Yeah.
It's, you know, people are like, well, the good times are over. You know, I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. But the way things are trending.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we're looking at serious problems, planetary disaster on a monumental level. You know, think about this. Yeah. Think about how unlikely it was, you know, for me and you to be sitting here right now together. How unlikely it is for our bodies to develop this way, you know, and for us to emerge from the animal matrix into this half angel, a half monkey. that we are, you know. And I think that perhaps psychedelic mushrooms,
Mm.
you know, and we know the effect that this stuff has on your brain. It's like a catalyst for your brain that makes you think better. It makes your brain neuroplastic. It makes it
Yeah.
neurogenetic. It makes it uh, you know interconnect itself with different parts of the brain, and it's insane. You know, it's totally possible that our ancestors were chomping down on these mushrooms
Mhm.
and
For
their
sure.
brains were
For
like, because
sure.
you know the scientists talk about the missing
Yeah.
link,
Dude, I've done
the
reading on that
missing link. So
recently.
there's this.
Yeah.
We went from a certain brain size,
Mhm.
then in a very short amount of time, our brain size doubled.
Yeah.
And as in a short amount of time, I mean about 1 million or 2 million years,
Yeah.
which is a blink of an eye
Yeah.
in terms of the history
Not really
of our
nothing going
species.
on, you know.
Right. So how did this happen? We don't know. We're looking for this transitional skeleton, you know, to make it make sense, but we haven't found it. So what people like McKenna postulated was, look, you know, the time that our brain size doubled, you know, we were in Africa, and during this time, the rainforest was receding. We had to come down from the trees and start to look for new food, and we know that there was an ungulate animal roaming in that area, and we all know that's you know, cow dung is the preferred
Yep.
substrate for Psilocybe cubensis. So it's very likely that that we did make a symbiosis with this thing, and this was our earliest brush against religion.
Yeah.
You know, this cattle worship. There was these cattle
Yeah.
worshiping religions way back. That
Mhm.
was like the
Yeah.
first
I read about
pastoral
that. Another synchronicity.
pastoral religions, and you know, they saw the cow as sacred because it was, you know, the source of the mushroom as far
Yeah.
as they could see. Um, and then you have, you know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and John Marco Allegro. He translated the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he did an analysis of it, and he broke down all the stratum of languages, and what he according to his research, and he was a brilliant linguist. He was a linguist. He studied language. And me and you could read that book and literally have no idea what he's talking about because
You
we
told me about
yeah, we
this.
don't study that.
Yeah.
Even Paul Stamets, you know, he was like,
Mm.
I have no idea what he's talking about. It's just too beyond his.
I haven't the slightest idea what you mean, kind sir.
It's just beyond. You know, you have to be a linguist to really understand it. But according to him, you know, Christianity was a mushroom cult hidden in these
That
stories.
art that you sent me the other day was amazing.
Yeah, there's these really old. I'm not sure how old, but these
It was
really
amazing.
really old depictions of Jesus Christ, you know, with mushrooms around him. And
Jesus Christ, the Messiah himself.
So what I'm saying is, you know, shamanism was the original religion, and you know what happens is you have a sacrament, okay? You have a sacrament, which is your connection to the spirit world, which is your connection with the supermind, okay? And over time, it gets lost. The sacrament gets lost somehow.
Yeah.
And then people are like
This
still
is big.
practicing.
Yeah.
They're still practicing
It's weird.
a
It's
dogma,
so weird.
a dogmanized version. That's not a word, but a
I mean,
dogmanized version of what was once a real connection. Look at Hinduism.
Yeah.
Hinduism had Soma. In the scriptures, it says nothing is greater than Soma.
Yeah.
Nothing is greater than all the deities.
Yeah.
Think about that. And it is
Oh,
popularly defined as a psychedelic substance that they were using, you know? But where's it at?
Yeah.
Where's it at? Why don't they use it anymore? You know, they have lost their fundamental connection with that world. Our normal state of consciousness is not enough. Our normal state of consciousness is not enough to contact these states, you know? You wouldn't want it to.
Yep.
I promise you.
No.
You would not
It would get
want
so
to be able to do that on the Natch.
freaking stressful, and that's
Yeah.
just the least amount of it.
Exactly.
I really, you know, we can't stress enough, and I'm glad that's the way you put it. Not only is it impossible to, you know, it's almost as if, you know, you're trying to jump really high, and then you can't get there without the aid of a trampoline to literally boost you up to how high as you want to get. Um, es- Especially like our most ceremony use for plants would definitely be kratom kava and cannabis. You know, the last time I got really out there on cannabis, he had an experience like this the other day. You know, it can make you feel a lot of doom for the present moment that we live in. And another thing that I want to add is, you know, for anybody who are like really young parents, um, you know, that are free thinkers, this could be a very scary moment. You know, me and my wife, we've talked about this quite a lot. Everything seems so uncertain, not only with this stupid war situations that's going on, these horrible, we just don't have words to cover how grotesque this
You know,
garbage is.
we turn women and children and human beings into money. We
Yeah.
think about it, Cameron, every single day. Ba-ching, 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 pumping out fucking bombs and missiles with our tax money.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with all that? They're pumping it out every day. They're making bombs
Look,
and missiles.
guys,
They're going to use that, and they're going to kill innocent people and turn that into money.
look,
We literally practice human sacrifice right
Yeah,
now.
I
Our
know,
country
we do.
does.
look at this. Capitalism, these politicians, all wars, professional sports, Hollywood, them are examples of 100% bullshit lies. It's all worthless. It's all that's the true corruption.
The cult of the surface.
You know, this can be really scary, and we worry about this a lot. We're concerned with not only our freedom, you know, what can be taken away, but this needs to motivate us to reach into these truths a lot more than we ever, you know, ever did before. Now, you know, like me and him are relatively young people, obviously, you know, mid to late 20s is not obviously, you know, a lot changes within, just say from your 15 to 25 to 30. And we do realize, we took a walk earlier and we said to ourselves, you know, we're not going to get any younger. You know,
Yeah.
the earlier we can embrace death,
The better.
the better. The earlier we can embrace a lot of the physical troubles that we could possibly deal with throughout life. You know, it's so good to, you know, take care of your physical body, as it is the temple. And it's so good to,
The temple of the living spirit of the universe.
yeah, you know, to treat not only every body that you come in contact with as good as possible, but
They're all Christ.
everybody, and all, not just people, but animals and insects,
Yeah.
birds.
If it has a consciousness,
It's,
treat it with compassion.
you know, we have a lot of, you know, the locust, you know, situation we got going on right now. You know,
Oh man,
they're
just
they're
so
beautiful.
Many, so many locusts. I love locusts. I know you do too. All right.
very cool little things there.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a locust infestation right now. I took a walk in the woods the other day and I was just trying not to step on them. There were so many, but um, but yeah, you know, culture is, as Terrence McKenna said, culture is not your friend. Culture is not your friend, and and we have a whole population of people that is you know, most of their consciousness is glued to, you know, the very tip of reality, and they don't even realize that there's anything else. You know, my confusion about that is it's like how can you not see? Like, don't you realize that we don't see all the colors?
Yeah.
Don't you realize that we can't hear all the frequencies? You know,
You know,
that in itself would show you that there's things going on that we don't see.
yeah.
You know, and when you observe just how strange reality is, on the surface,
Yeah.
like bugs and animals and the strange mechanisms of nature and how it all is this perfect balancing
Yeah.
ecosystem. It's beautiful and it's just so mind-boggling that we can sit here comfortably and have this
Yeah.
conversation. I've thought about this, like,
Absolutely.
why isn't reality just 100% painful?
I know.
To some people it is.
It is. You know what?
Depending on your incarnation, you might be sick or, and
We as humans, we often have the tendency to, oh man, how we overlook the many great things in our life. How we only point at
take
the
it for
bad things.
granted.
I do understand, and not only that, we sympathize for anybody that's in like deep depression. Like, we have depression from time to time, but I don't think we're like daily around the clock in depression, obviously, but we do sympathize with that, and we feel that maybe just simply looking at all this differently could be an aid to that.
If you're feeling anxious and you're feeling depressed, I mean, my advice would be, get off social media for a while.
We've had panic attacks before, really severe panic attacks.
I have had actual panic attacks.
He's been with me when I've had panic attacks, and we both know
I have too, man.
real panic attacks.
Yes, sir. Like, can't breathe.
They can be mistaken for heart attacks.
Yeah.
It's really serious. It's
when you're in a panic attack and then you entertain the idea that you might be having a heart attack.
It pushes it over the edge. That's when, I used to have a lot of panic attacks many years ago when my wife was going through some difficult problems with pregnancy. And now I look back at how hard those things was, and I'm just like, if I just would have knew about kava, this could have helped me so much through this.
Yeah, man.
Seriously though,
kava is so interesting because it's one of the only things that affect your GABA.
And you don't get addicted, my good chap.
That is this strong. That is this strong. And that delivers these types of effects that doesn't enslave you in addiction. It's insane.
Absolutely.
It's insane. I remember thinking when they passed that law that said, there's no other, gender other than male and female.
Mm-hmm. Was this recently?
That was like when Trump first got in.
I see.
And I remember thinking, so this is a direct like blow towards trans people, right?
Right.
Yeah. So do you realize that if you're I might be getting this wrong, so forgive me if I do, but I'm pretty sure that if you're a male and you transition into a female, you will need to be on estrogen for the rest of your life because you can die. So I mean, if we just ban transgender, there's going to be people that's going to die.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to say about transgenderism is the idea that what you are born with is what you have to live by is an antiquated idea. Very soon, if this world stands, there will be, there will be at least virtual realities to where we can be anything.
Same. I'm glad you brought that
up. And so we gotta let go of this idea that people need to just do what they were born with. I mean, we were living in a time to where we can live our lives however we damn
The truth
please.
is, what the hell does that even mean? When you really sit down and examine, like, oh my God, all of this over here, but you're focusing on this crumb.
Dude, are you not exactly? Are you not? There's a pile of shit in the corner, and you're worried about a
Yeah,
crumb on the floor.
yeah.
You know, like there's
Look,
literally people dying every fucking day from unnecessary wars.
the truth is, this also applies to, are you black, white, Asian, like Indian? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, all
It's
these,
literally something that just started long ago.
it's low consciousness
It's
once
low
again to
consciousness
let
activity.
it continue.
Yeah.
People talk about it's 2025, everything's modern. I
Fuck
mean,
no, it's
no,
not
you
in
know
a lot
what?
of ways.
People were
We're
more
still monkeys.
inclined in many ways way back in the day. I mean, there's some brilliant brains from the past. I feel that there was more going on there in a lot of ways than even they are now. But yeah, that's the main thing, is to realize this. Oh my, this doesn't matter.
Just like the drug issue, it goes across the board. People have the autonomy. People should have the autonomy over their own bodies.
Not only is it our freedom and a way to become free, but it's the individual's way, a temporary individual's way, in our physical body to go back home. Every time we take credit, I'm like, oh God, we're going back home, man. We're going back home. The beginning.
Dude, it's so fucking trippy to me, man.
It is trippy.
When I get deep in on those psychedelics, or if I'm on a kratom dose, or if I'm on cannabis, you feel, just more ready for that.
You do.
You
You're like
feel more not in a suicidal
no,
way.
absolutely
like,
not.
Wow, when that time comes, it's going to be spectacular. That's my feeling about death. I feel like that it could be like it could be many things. I have no idea.
I have something to say,
but I
actually,
really
no.
think that death could be like
I just looked at it. Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot.
I had a revelation yesterday and I forgot to write it down.
I forgot. How could I have forgotten?
What was it? I had the biggest revelation. I had a couple of them recently and I just didn't write them down. But one thing that I do want to say is that there's been a lot of people who's used kratom, and they've talked about some people in I think, I don't know if it was medieval times, but like around that area, there's some places that they gave kratom to people who was, I keep dropping that, was getting ready to pass away. And it helped them not only accept death, but really look to death as though it's, hey, why am I dreading this? It's natural. Right. It's our natural process.
It's like taking off a tight shoe.
Oh, I love that.
That's what Mom Dog said.
We come together and have these talks.
And I really think that all of us should not be so caught up in our own egos, and be selfless.
Look, I'm
not saying not take care of yourself. You should take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of your needs consciously, but we live in a society that is so absorbed with themselves, and with social media, and just look at my ass, and like posting pictures of everything, it's all about
that.
them.
All goes down to being so absorbed with your three-dimensional body.
Yes.
That's going to go away very quickly.
Look at Kanye West's music. I know I don't really listen to it at all.
Exactly. Just an example.
Like it,
exactly.
But I've seen Kanye on the Joe Rogan Experience, and I can tell you that he talks that entire time about himself. He's obviously a person that is very absorbed in himself and who he thinks he is.
That's the thing, man.
And that is not a good way to live, because that's not the way nature is, dude.
Exactly.
Nature cares about the whole, not the individual. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
But there, you should also take pride in your individuality too, without with that balance between taking care of yourself and exercising the best parts of yourself, and how can I help? My girlfriend, she gets rather upset. She works in customer service. She has to deal with customers and things, and she gets rather discouraged by just how many rude people there
Yeah,
are out
yeah.
there. You know, and me personally, when I encounter a rude person, I just simply don't react at all
Yeah.
because I just don't. It doesn't bother me really. I just say, oh, you know, there's something inside this person
Hurting.
that's hurting them, and they're spewing that internal venom out, and that's just natural. They got stuff
Mhm.
they need to deal with, and they're not, you know. So, but her, she gets, you know,
Yeah,
she
very
she
upset
gets
about it.
upset about that, and I understand.
Mhm.
You know, it is discouraging, but
Yeah.
you know, what can we do about that? You know, we can do the same thing as that person did and be a dick and badmouth them,
It's a
or
never-ending merry-go-round.
exactly, or you could recognize that what that person is being a dick about has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
They don't know you. That is a manifestation of their internal state, and that's sad.
Yeah.
But if we treat them with compassion and just not be bothered by that,
Yeah.
you know, we can represent higher consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, you could see it as, you know, every time you do that, you're allowing the spirit of Krishna to move your flesh instead of your monkey impulses. You know, it's like animals, you know, as they evolve. It's like once we got to a certain point of evolution in our nervous system, it became possible to commune with this higher thing.
Mhm.
You see, once we
Yeah.
started to ask the question, huh,
Yeah.
where did all this come from?
Yes, sir.
That's that awareness, that development of the neocortex. That was when it was possible to contact this, you know, intelligence.
Yes, sir. Very, very good said, brother. Very beautiful, man. I've, as usual, greatly enjoyed our talk today,
Me
man.
too, brother.
Whether or not we get any views, we just keep putting them sapsuckers out there,
As
man.
Mr. McKenna said, we must spread the memes. Spread the memes.
And if you yourself don't have anything to add, I believe that I think that I covered everything. We'll come forth extremely soon, though, to do another one. You have anything you want to add, man?
I think we covered a lot of good stuff. You know, I hope that anybody that watched this, you know, can feel inspired by it.
Help us reach 1 million subscribers. Yeah. No, just joking. I mean, that'd be cool. But
yeah, it'd be cool, but it's not a big deal to us, man.
Yeah.
You know, it would be cool. You know, we're just trying to, because we have these conversations. You
Might
know,
as
we've had them
well
for years.
record it.
We've had them for years, and you know, it's cool to be able to capture it and
Yeah, very
throw
cool.
it out there for anybody that might find some
At least
interesting
4 hours
information in it.
on entertainment to go back and just gaze upon our conversation from a year ago. No, seriously though, peace and love.
Peace and love.
Love you all.
Hare Krishna. Stay free, motherfuckers.